It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Hi, it's Feedback Friday. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. This is how I feel right now. Einstein made of stars, complete with the puffball hair. But for those of you who have been following the 2.5 week saga of the hair conditioner, ta-da! It finally arrived. Finally arrived. 2.5 freaking weeks to get a bottle of conditioner. Liquid gold. Oh my God, COVID. Okay, so, comments on all 3 videos this week. First, there was an incident this week where someone got harassed on Twitter because of a comment they made on my YouTube channel. Apparently they had open DMs, didn't realize it. Somebody tracked them down through a similar screen name and griefed them for something they said in comments that I read on Feedback Friday. So I'm not reading names anymore on Feedback Friday, at least for a while. That I'm glad the person told me. I was pissed off that someone would do that. And unlike so many people who are like, don't harass, don't harass, don't harass, and then just keep doing what they're doing anyway, I actually do things to prevent people getting harassed. So if you don't care and you want to just leave a little thing in your comment, go ahead and use my name, by all means. But at least for the next little while, I'm not going to read names in comments. That it's just... Patrons got a lot more background the last couple weeks about sort of the behind the scenes story of some of the stuff I talk about. This week, patrons, I talked about my experiences with how female on-camera personalities are punished when camera people and directors take bad angles. So obviously the Aloy stuff hits close to home. So if you're interested in this added content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. What I'm going to do, a bunch of people said, yes, they are interested in my thoughts on Resident Evil 8. So I'm going to try to blow through this stuff really quickly and then get to my thoughts on Resident Evil 8. So, okay, real quick. First of all, Wellness Wednesday, there was a lot of stuff about trust and it hit nerves. And sometimes that happens on Wellness Wednesday. And I'm like, wow, okay. I always say a person can't control what baggage other people bring into the room with them. Fair. One person got very upset with, why do I have to trust? Why isn't trust earned? I never said trust wasn't earned. Of course trust is earned, but you have to give people chances to prove they're trustworthy. And if you are so super guarded that you never give them that opportunity, they're never allowed to prove themselves. That was the point. Someone else says, it feels like you want us to make up with the people who continually attack us to this day. Nope, not at all. If someone is continuing to attack you, why would I tell you to make up with them? They're not interested in making up with you. They're still attacking you. All I'm asking for everybody, and I know nobody's going to listen to me, but I'm standing to this on a point of principle. When the attacks stop, and they stopped years ago, don't continue to punish someone for stuff that happened years ago. There's a reason I can't stand it when anyone in the games press drops the word Gamergate. It is over. Let it go. Goes both ways, right? Someone can't possibly apologize to every single person in the world when it's something that big. And yes, some screw-ups are worse than others. But, if somebody seems to have turned over a new leaf, little baby steps don't hurt anybody. Remember, in order to get emotional rewards, you have to take emotional risks. And now we move on to the Aloy stuff. Because I was really surprised at 2 kind of buckets of comments. One is, why are you criticizing men who want to see more feminine faces? They have the right to express that preference. And why are you criticizing men who want more athletic women? And it's like, I'm not criticizing either. That's not the point. There's nothing wrong, everything right, with personally finding whatever you consider feminine women attractive. Now, that's different things to different people. First of all, I hear some men say they like their women feminine, meaning they like them sort of doll-like and petite. When other men say feminine, they're talking Jessica Rabbit, right? So you're already using subjective terminology when you talk about feminine. It's different things to different people. You know, in some cultures, feminine means modest, right? Obviously, we're not talking about that here. Same thing with athletic, right? Athletic. Most people, when they say athletic, that's the look they like. They basically mean bodybuilder. And this is where I have to, this is not a criticism of anybody. This is just a athletic. You keep using this word. There are many different types of female bodies on athletes. Observe. Naomi Osaka. You may have seen her in the news. Rounded-ish face. Not rippling, bulging biceps, right? She's not skinny. She's got a fat layer for that quick energy, right? She doesn't have an hourglass figure. She's got core strength. That's an athlete. So is Serena Williams. Now, bigger arms here, bigger breasts, but Serena Williams is not, bodybuilder looking. She's a tennis player. But then there are other types of female athlete. And this is, you're going to go, but these are athletes. I'm going somewhere with this. This is Sarah Robles, world champion weightlifter. She's an athlete. No, she is. She could probably deadlift you. She's very strong. Athlete. And this is Paige Pierce, a world champion archer. She is an athlete. Now, when most people say athlete, they think of somebody more like Serena Williams than Paige Pierce. But we have to keep in mind, all these women are athletes. And this is the issue with Aloy. It's not that there's anything wrong with liking feminine-looking women. It's not like there's anything wrong with liking bodybuilder women or figure model women. Is that appropriate to expect in a game where it's an Iron Age female warrior shooting robot dinosaurs with fire arrows? If you look at earlier Mankind, no, yes, okay, Aloy, spoiler, if you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, Aloy is a clone of a scientist. So, but still, she's not going to be wearing full makeup. There are no bras in the Iron Age, okay? They were wound up pieces of cloth. So she's not going to be running. Trust me, you don't do a low crouch on your knees with boobs like mine, okay? Like, let's be realistic. Because if you're not accepting that, you may think that's great. Now, hear me out here. Don't get triggered and freak out. Because there's two sides to this. One, when you're insisting that every woman in gaming is to your taste, or at least the popular characters in gaming are to your taste, you're basically saying there's only one type of woman that's allowed to be depicted in media. They all have to just be for you. And that's just not possible because everybody's got to get a turn, right? There were plenty of people, male and female alike, in the comments that said they found Aloy quite beautiful. Well, don't they get a turn? There isn't, beauty is subjective, right? Some guys like really tall women. Some guys like women who are shorter than them. I think more men should like really tall women, personally. It upsets me that really tall women have trouble finding dates because I think I only dated one guy in my entire life. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't think I dated many people of any gender who were taller than me. One. Couple my height, but most of the people I was involved with still, I mean, my husband's 5'2". What is this, right? I think more men should give tall women a chance. But, someone who hides in bushes a lot, being tall is not a benefit, right? And that's the thing. Like, the character should look like she makes sense in her world. And somebody who looks like she just stepped out of a 1940s speakeasy doesn't make sense in the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, this is the other part. I told you don't get triggered. And if you've already left your nasty comment, the problem is that those more feminine women, they've basically, before Lady Dimitrescu, they've basically been erased from gaming. I mean, let's be real. We've been playing Yakuza 0 on Twitch, and, you know, the women in, like, the heels and the 80s miniskirts. It's like, whoa, what's this? You know, and they're all Asian. It's like, what? That's a problem. Precisely because a spectrum of women should be represented means a spectrum of women should be represented. There should be space for those pinup throwbacks. There should be space for women who look like every single one of those athletes that I showed. You know, I want to go back to the days of Fable 2, where Hannah the Hammer was there, and she looked like the weightlifter, right? Like the makers of Fable 2, Lions had actually made a woman who looked like she could swing that giant friggin' hammer, right? And nobody went crazy. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. Because if you look at women who deadlift that shit, that's what they look like. Sarah Robles, right? We need to bring that spectrum back. And a commenter on the Far Cry video, I don't want to steal their thunder, but this kind of dovetails into that. So let me read this now. So this one's longer, but basically the commenter said, these days I don't go past cautious optimism, mostly, don't always manage, but cautious optimism for any Western media product. I'm seeing the whole thing, and its content is set in stone. Because the moment I allow myself to get super hyped for something, that's when the creators will censor something or break a promise or cave to a cancel mob or otherwise do something that says to me, haha, Rube, you just gave your money and your emotional energy to people who hate you and want you to feel stomped on. Ongoing, the only way... Now, I realize that tactically they may not be the best approach, but it's the best approach that also lets me keep my sanity and dignity. The only way for a company to truly win my trust is to do something expressly anti-woke and then openly and notoriously hold their ground in the face of the mob. Then I can feel safe that they won't betray whatever trust I put in them because they burn their bridges and have nowhere else to go. Now, like I said, I think that really ties into that. People have been so burned. It's the other side of only certain types of women are acceptable. It's wrong when anybody does it. Okay, and I'm going to call everybody on it. And that's why when I read, the only way to truly win my trust is to do something expressly anti-woke and then openly and notoriously hold your ground in the face of the mob. I guess I understand now why this commenter is a regular viewer of my content. Because when I feel strongly about something, I don't care how anti-woke it is. I'm like, bring it! You know, I'm like Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. You call this a storm? I figured something out. But yeah, it's true. This is complicated, but just because one side is doing a bad thing, that doesn't mean it's perfectly okay for another side to do a bad thing, right? And expecting every game to cater specifically to your tastes, that's not fair. Because there's so many tastes, and everybody deserves to get a turn. Like, it's not about creating the perfect woman every time, right? We don't expect male characters to do that. Fuck, Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5 would not exist if we had to do that with men, right? Every woman that's playable in a video game is not going to be your fantasy girl. I know people understand this on a logical level. So I don't understand why, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't understand why there is this, when there's a graphics upgrade, okay? For some odd reason, when they came out with the remastered Gears of War, I liked the way the characters looked originally better. I think it just because it was less to look at. Or sometimes it's just that's what you're used to. And you have to get used to the new thing. Some people said it looks like Aloy's put on 20, 30 pounds. We don't know the story, right? For all we know, she's been kicking back and drinking as like a champion, the way Iron Age warriors would back in the day. Maybe it's beer weight. We don't know. Maybe that's a story point. The same way Kratos and Nathan Drake put on weight between games because they got the dad bods. We don't know what's going on with this game. And you gotta be really careful what you're saying about your principles when you knee-jerk in this way. And I get it. It's gonna take some time because we're so used to doing this, particularly with women. And the people that said, all I saw was reasonable comments. No, I'm sorry. I read stuff. I provided examples for a reason. I wasn't talking about the reasonable comments. I was talking about the people who went full Tropic Thunder. Okay? Like, please don't straw man me. It doesn't do any good. It just really seems like an emotional button got hit in some people, and they don't want to acknowledge the point because it hurts. But let me tell you the other side, okay? Women have to go through watching other women, real and fictional, get judged this way every day. That hurts too. Even if women don't like to admit it, some women. Seeing other women judged like hawks of ham makes you look at the people doing it and go, so that's what I say about me when they think I can't hear. One of the things I talked about on Patreon on Thursday is the stuff that people said about me when I was on television that sometimes I thought I couldn't hear. Sometimes I just outright said it because they were network executives and they were fucking dick. That's painful, okay? You're not the only one feeling pain that you didn't get what you want this time, right? Accept the character for who they are. Don't prejudge. Do what the commenter said. Wait until it's out. Wait until the hole is there. I do think it was something of a mistake for Sony to put out video that unpolished. It's the Incredible Hulk trailer all over again. But watch it. Like, just don't go overboard. I understand it is something of a reflex. It is something of a tick. But please be more conscious about it, because it weakens positions of people like me who are sitting here going, we should be able to have hookers and dancing girls and lounge singers and, Jessica Rabbit types, more Lady Dimitrescu, please, for longer in the game. It weakens our argument when people take an Iron Age warrior shooting at robot dinosaurs with fire arrows and go, she's not feminine enough. When even feminine, like I said, is a highly subjective term. So that's just my frustration there, that it does make it harder to fight that fight when I get undermined with stuff like that. And that doesn't mean it's not an impulse that, has its place, but keep it in its place, please. So there was a bunch of other stuff that I'm not sure I have time to get to. People agreed the negativity in gaming. One person brought up, an example of when games do good and people don't just criticize the bad. They brought up Breath of the Wild, in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I'm glad that they live in a world where people didn't obsessively criticize that game, because that is not my world. I have always been baffled by the amount of negativity I hear around Breath of the Wild. Because, okay, I'm an original Legend of Zelda girl. I was alive playing games when that came out. So it's like, there's emotional attachment there. But, I'm a Twilight Princess girl. I'm an Ocarina of Time girl. I love Breath of the Wild for what it was. And I hear all these criticisms of the game. I'm like, what? That game just sucked me in and didn't let me go. And I could nitpick it, but I do not care. It was just like, I played nothing else on my Nintendo Switch for, I don't know, like 9 months. I was obsessed with that game. Boom shakalaka! I love that game. I don't know how people dunk on it. So thank you, person, for giving me a glimpse into an alternate dimension. Another alternate dimension was people who said that Witcher 3 was a disaster at launch and didn't get praise till several patches down the line. That is not what happened in, like, elite games press world. Okay? People were friggin' praising that game up the ass. And I was like, I remember that acutely for 2 reasons. One, I had that game-breaking bug where Geralt stopped being able to run, could only walk real slow places, and I had to stop playing for 3 weeks for it to be patched. And the other is the fact that I was going, this is an unsustainable development model. This is not the gold standard. They got lucky. Stop saying this is what all games should aspire to be. You can't. First of all, you can't do it in the US and Canada because development is much cheaper in Poland. But also, that is a shit ton of content. And not everything is going to be lightning in the bottle. And then they did Cyberpunk and Proving Right. But that wasn't the same team. That was the higher ups from Witcher 2, not Witcher 3. I actually think Cyberpunk would have been a better game if it was the Witcher 3 team. The difference night and day between Witcher 2 and Witcher 3. Like, yes, they were glitchy at launch, but like I said, alternate universes, right? That's why it's good to talk about this stuff. Now, for Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village. The longer I am away from that game, the more positive my opinion of it is. It's one of those games that make me very, very glad that I am not reviewing games with numeric scores anymore, because that one would stump me. Because I'd be torn between, do I reward the developer for the things they did really, really, really well? Or do I act as a consumer advocate and go first and foremost value for money? And I tend to go first and foremost consumer advocate, value for money, which means I probably would have given the game a 7.5 and needed nothing but shit. And then maybe wait and bumped it up to an 8 last minute because I felt bad because it did do some good things. But like, if you're one of those people that like to just play through a game with a story and never touch it again, it's not that kind of game. It's designed to be replayed. I do want to replay it because I think I'll enjoy it better the second time in terms of the story, because I just spent so much time going, what is going on? My opinion is I don't think they really knew what they had with those characters, because my most favorite to least favorite enemies it's like opposite, right? Like Lady Dimitrescu is my favorite, followed by Angie, who's this creepy doll chick who, not enough time. That level was way too short. But Angie and Moreau are like super duper close. I like them different. Heisenberg is my least favorite. Absolute least favorite. And part of it is the level just went on forever. I mean, okay, yes, it's Resident Evil 4 beats. I get it. But I didn't really like it in Resident Evil 4 and I don't like it again. So if it had been like inverted in terms of order, I would have been much happier. But again, that's my preference, right? I'm bowing to the tradition, and at least I know that. I'm not saying it's not the way I want it, so 1 star, right? It does some wonderful things. It does some utterly frustrating things. I totally understand why it was not a third-person game. For me, I still like Resident Evil as a third-person game. So many of those truly beautiful levels were just lost because of the first-person perspective with no FOV slider in the dark. They created these beautiful works of art and you barely see them because most of the time you're being chased by something, running for your life, or like walking around with this flashlight that sometimes works and there's no on-off switch. It's just whenever Ethan decides to turn on his fucking light. Some interesting puzzles. My favorite for the puzzles was the Moreau level because it combined action gameplay with puzzle solving, and that is tough to do, and I thought they did that level very, very well. There was some unevenness for that. Sometimes I knew exactly what to do. And it was like, bam, I knew what to do. I did it. It was so damn satisfying. And then other times, like, I'd stop playing for the session, pick it up the day after or 2 days after, and I totally forgot what I was supposed to do, and there was nothing in the game reminding me of what I was supposed to do. So I sort of stumbled around lost until I kind of landed on something. What's another good thing is the Duke character. Resident Evil shopkeeps are really, really important to games, and the Duke was an excellent character. There's so much unexplored with those characters that they could do like prequel DLC, and I would play that shit, and I would buy that shit if it was reasonably priced. To me, the biggest, if this was $20 cheaper as a game, I'd say totally worth it. It's a fun game overall, but $80 Canadian, maybe not so much. That's a bit steep for what you get. Now I probably will replay it, maybe eventually, but still, it is, I think, my playtime, and I tried to get everything I possibly could to upgrade my weapons, and it was still 14 hours. That's not counting deaths and stuff like that. And there are some cheap deaths. The context sensitive prompts, the box on them is way too small for some of the things they're doing. Again, would have been solved with a field of view slider, but it doesn't have a field of view slider. So many things I missed. I was right there, but I wasn't flat on it. And so I missed it. It was super frustrating. And the final boss fight, I hated it. I just hated it. It's an ammo sink. And because the guard is his arms, Ethan's arms, you can't see what the fuck you're doing because you're guarding. And it was just obnoxious. And the boss is goo. It's a Resident Evil boss, right? The background's goo. It was so hard to see what you were doing. Super, super, super letdown final boss fight. However, the ride to get there was pretty good. And the story, there were parts that were so laugh out loud funny cheese. I was like guffawing. You can watch the Twitch streams on it. I put it all up. Legit fun. Too many jump scares on the Dimitrescu level. Too many jump scares. Hate jump scares. They make me violent. Hate them. Much preferred the creepy freakiness of, as one viewer called it, the dollhouse of Nope. And the Moreau stuff. Moreau and Dimitrescu, I felt like we got to know as characters better than Angie and Heisenberg, though Heisenberg definitely more than Angie. But the ride was fun overall. And, problems aside, my recommendation, since the hype is over now, if you haven't played the game, is to wait until it comes down in price a bit and get it on a 25% off sale. That's where I think it'll be totally worth every penny you pay. But it was good. And see, this is where I start going, but I really want to award the art, and I really want to award the larger than life characters, and I really want to reward that they tried to do something interesting and larger than life and a cohesive vision and just beautiful, even with the vomit and maggots and severed limbs and all the blood and goo and slime. Right? It's a Resident Evil game. But, I don't remember Resident Evil games being that beautiful. Like, just those mansions and the castles and all that. So pretty. And I realized how much I want more of that in games. Like, it reminded me of, like, Resident Evil 4 meets Clive Barker's Undying in a lot of ways. And there's nothing not good about that. One thing I will say is if you're waiting and you don't know anything about Resident Evil 7, even just watching, like, a cutscene thing with Resident Evil 7 before you play 8, the story is much more rewarding if you understand what happened in Resident Evil 7 going in. Because it's a continuation. I don't think you necessarily have to play the game, but you do sort of need to know what's going on to understand some of the finer little details. And they don't spoon feed it to you, so knowing those details helps. But yeah, it was just nice to see a game studio present a vision, and here's our game, and we created a world, and we hope you like it. It has nothing really to do with reality at all. It's a bunch of, like, Eastern European myth mixed with a bunch of other stuff. Enjoy. That's, like, classic video game good stuff. Yeah? And that's why I say I'm torn. Because I have to do the consumer advocate thing. But at the same time, can game companies please take more risks like that? Please. Like, please just make characters that say something and are iconic and are immediately recognizable and generate memes of looking cranky on the phone, right? Like, I don't think they knew what they had with Lady Dimitrescu, but I'm so glad they did it. Like, I'm so glad. It wasn't that the other characters were bad. It wasn't that Heisenberg was a bad character. Like, in a lot of other games, he'd be a standout. It's just that the Moreau and Dimitrescu are just really good characters with very strong personalities, and Angie's just so friggin' creepy that it drew me in. That the design on that level, even though it frustrated the crap out of me, was excellent. The way they did, but before it was the run around and chase, which I think there was a little bit too much of it, but I know that's what, under 35s expect from survival horror now. But just those early scenes in the dollhouse, just such great atmospheric horror. Just no corners cut, no cheap scares, really, really, really good. And yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to make sure I reward the stuff they did really, really well, not glossing over the flaws so that people can spend their money. Hopefully that managed. I know that was a bit of a balancing act. So there you go. My thoughts on Resident Evil Village. If you like this kind of stuff, because reviews never do very much, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.